The House on Maple Street. Prologue. On the corner of Maple Street stood an old Victorian house, abandoned and decaying. The house had been empty for years, but its dark windows and overgrown yard held the secrets of a tragic past. The locals whispered about strange noises and ghostly apparitions, but no one dared to enter, until now. Chapter 1. The New Owners. Sarah and Mark, a young couple looking for a fresh start, bought the house at a suspiciously low price. Excited by the prospect of renovating and bringing new life to the old mansion, they moved in, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. The neighbors watched with a mix of pity and fear, knowing that the house on Maple Street had claimed many lives. Chapter 2. The First Night. Their first night in the house, Sarah was awoken by the sound of footsteps echoing through the halls. She assumed it was just the house settling and went back to sleep. Mark, too, felt a strange presence, but dismissed it as his imagination. Little did they know, the house was watching them, waiting for the right moment. Chapter 3. The Hidden Room. While exploring the house, Sarah discovered a hidden door in the basement. Behind it was a small, dusty room filled with old furniture and cobweb-covered photographs. In the center of the room was a large, ornate mirror. As she wiped the dust off the mirror, she felt a chill run down her spine. The reflection showed not just her own image, but also the faint outline of a woman standing behind her. Chapter 4. The Haunting. Begins that night. Sarah had vivid nightmares of a woman crying out for help, trapped in the house. She woke up in a cold sweat, only to see the same woman from her dreams standing at the foot of her bed. The apparition vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving Sarah terrified. Mark tried to comfort her, but he too began experiencing strange occurrences. A shadowy figure in the hallway, whispers in the night, and objects moving on their own. Chapter 5. The Journal. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah and Mark started researching the history of the house. They found an old journal hidden in the attic, belonging to a woman named Eliza, who had lived in the house over a century ago. The journal detailed her descent into madness, as she was haunted by a malevolent spirit that drove her to take her own life. Chapter 6. The Seance. Desperate for answers, Sarah and Mark invited a local medium, Mrs. Whitaker, to conduct a seance. The medium sensed a powerful, dark presence in the house. During the seance, the spirit of Eliza manifested, pleading for help to escape her tormentor. The atmosphere grew tense as the malevolent spirit, an old vengeful man named Thomas, made his presence known. Chapter 7. The Revelation. Mrs. Whitaker revealed that Thomas had been a cruel, abusive man who had imprisoned Eliza in the house, driving her to insanity. His spirit remained bound to the house, feeding on the fear and despair of its inhabitants. Eliza's spirit was trapped, unable to find peace until Thomas's spirit was vanquished. Chapter 8. The Plan. Sarah, Mark, and Mrs. Whitaker devised a plan to rid the house of Thomas's spirit. They gathered the necessary items for a powerful cleansing ritual, hoping to banish the malevolent presence once and for all. The air was thick with tension as they prepared for the confrontation, knowing that failure could mean their doom. Chapter 9. The Battle. As they began the ritual, the house erupted in chaos. Doors slammed, windows shattered, and a howling wind filled the rooms. Thomas's spirit appeared, furious and menacing, attempting to stop them. Sarah and Mark held their ground, chanting the incantations, while Mrs. Whitaker confronted Thomas directly, using her spiritual energy to weaken him. Chapter 10. The Sacrifice. The struggle intensified, and it became clear that Thomas's spirit was too strong. Mrs. Whitaker made the ultimate sacrifice, using her own life force to bind Thomas and weaken him enough for the ritual to work. With a final, powerful incantation, Sarah and Mark completed the ritual, banishing Thomas's spirit in a blinding flash of light. Chapter 11. The Aftermath. The house grew silent. The oppressive presence lifted. Mrs. Whitaker's lifeless body lay on the floor, her sacrifice not in vain. Eliza's spirit appeared one last time, thanking Sarah and Mark before fading away, finally at peace. The couple mourned Mrs. Whitaker, but felt a sense of relief, knowing the house was now free from its dark past. Chapter 12. The Renovation. With the malevolent spirits gone, Sarah and Mark continued their renovations, transforming the house into a beautiful home. They discovered hidden letters and artifacts that painted a fuller picture of Eliza's life, and they decided to honor her memory by preserving some of the historical elements in the house. Chapter 13. The New Beginning. The house on Maple Street became a symbol of resilience and hope. Sarah and Mark invited the neighbors for a housewarming party, sharing the story of Eliza and Mrs. Whitaker's bravery. The house was no longer a place of fear, but a beacon of new beginnings and restored faith. Chapter 14. The Legacy. Sarah and Mark wrote a book about their experiences, bringing attention to the often overlooked history of the house. Their story inspired others to learn from the past and confront the darkness with courage and compassion. The house on Maple Street became a local landmark, visited by those curious about its history and the heroism of its latest occupants. Chapter 15. The Peace Years. Later, Sarah and Mark raised their children in the house, instilling in them the importance of bravery, kindness, and respect for the past. The house remained a peaceful home, free from the shadows that once haunted its halls. Eliza's memory lived on, a testament to the power of truth and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Epilogue. The tale of the house on Maple Street was passed down through generations, a story of terror, redemption, and the triumph of light over darkness. Sarah and Mark's legacy continued to inspire, proving that even the darkest places could be transformed by the light of courage and love.